I got to talk recently to my friend Jon Swearingen about his job working at Lakewood Church for one of the world's biggest faith figures, Minister Joel Osteen. So let's listen to that now.
And I would like to start by asking, what is your official title, John?
My official title, I am the Senior Director of Music and Ministry, Music and Media.
Okay. And where is that?
I'm at Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas.
Okay. And there's a certain famous person that ministers there. Is that right?
There is. His name is Joel Osteen.
Okay.
It's a small little church on the corner that seats about 16,000 people and has about 35,000 members. So it's just like the church I grew up in Crane. It's exactly like it. Well, I left Crane when I graduated in '84, and I went to Tulsa to go to Oral Roberts University because, first of all, that was the only university my parents would pay for, and second of all, it was known to be a school for television production, and I knew that's what I'm pretty sure that's what I wanted to do. But what's interesting is actually I thought I wanted to be a business major, and I think it was my senior year, I went to ORU, and they had this weekend where they had college or high school students come, and you could check out two majors. And so I listened to the business major, and then I went and thought, I'll listen to the television. That should be cool. And I don't remember what the professor said, but I just remember thinking, that's what I want to do the rest of my life.
Wow.
And like I said, I don't even know what it was. So not only did Stick Allen play a role, this Professor Evan Culp played a role as well. And then from then on, I graduated in 4 years. I stayed and I worked for Oral Roberts Television Ministry for 3 years. And then in '91, I was offered a job here in Houston at Lakewood Church. And that was...
That was a whole different experience then because it was much smaller. And
it was. You know, it was smaller, but it was still a mega church. They still ran about 6,000 people on a weekend. Well, a little under 6,000 people, which was a big church. I mean, you got to realize that's huge. Crane is it's not even 6,000 people, so we could fit the entire population.
Crane,
exactly, including all the dairy farms and the cows. And so I did that for I think it was 9 years, and worked for Joel under his dad. And then when his father, his dad was a Southern Methodist preacher that then got into the gifts of the Holy Spirit, kind of, so he became a charismatic, if you will, non-denominational is what's the term it's called. And he was a very personable guy, loved to give tours around the church during the week, and he always wanted to bring them up to the TV department and show them the latest video that we had done. And just was, really a solid leader, and it was a joy to work for. Lakewood and the Osteens always did everything right. When I say right, the first year I came down from Tulsa, because I did some things for them before I moved here, it was a Christmas special that they had done. And Joel's assistant, Ruth, called me and asked what my tuxedo size was. And they'd rented the entire crew and the ushers all tuxedos.
Really?
And when we got here for the show, this is Houston, Texas, mind you, in the Gulf Coast. When we got here for the show, they had piled a bunch of fake snow outside and decorated the church. It was beautiful. And I thought, man, this place really knows how to do things right. And it was a few years later that a friend of mine who also worked with Joel, his name's Phil Cook, I worked with him in Tulsa. He ended up convincing Joel to hire me. And so I moved down here. Incidentally, Phil ended up years later meeting this young lady in Pittsburgh and really hit it off with her, and they were trying to figure out who who could Allison, we had to hook Allison up with someone. And they called me and said, hey, we're sitting here next to your future wife. And years later, it ended up being my future wife. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, that's kind of off the subject of Crane, but so then after Joel worked for his father, when his father passed away, Joel became the pastor, and then I took over Joel's job as media director.
Wasn't he kind of like, he was very non-committal about being in that role, is that right?
His father wanted him to preach. His father wanted him to get up there and do it. And Joel kept saying, no, I'll the most I'll do, I'll get up and say something every once in a while, like, once every other month or so.
Uh-huh.
And one Sunday, Joel's father called, and toward the end of his life, his father was on dialysis, and he had to be in and out of the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And so his dad called and said, hey, Joel, I want you to preach for me this Sunday. I got to be in the hospital. And Joel said, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not a preacher. So he hung up the phone, and he went back to eating dinner, and he realized, you know what, I need to call my dad back. There's something in me that says I should do it. So he called his dad back and said, hey, I'll do it for you this Sunday. And so his dad was elated. His mother and older sister nearly passed out because they said, oh, my gosh, Joel's going to preach his first sermon.
Wow.
So Joel spent that entire week preparing for the sermon. We hooked up his dad remotely in the hospital. We had a phone that we hooked up so he could hear Joel's message. And he got up and told some jokes and did a great job. The people loved it. And, of course, us crew members, we were more nervous for him than, as nervous as he was, we felt like.
Yeah.
So long story short, he goes up to see his dad, and his dad was so happy. Well, that next Friday, his dad had a heart attack and passed away.
Really?
And that soon, right after his first message. And it was really, nobody thought he was going to die, we just, it's one of those things you don't know. He was 77 years old and on dialysis, but, we just figured he'd live several more years.
Yes.
And it ended up being that Joel became pastor. He just felt like it was something he was supposed to do. And here we are, 21 years later.
So
this month.
98? Is that what
99.
It was? 99.
99 is when he passed away, January 20th of 99.
Well, by that point, having preached the first sermon, did he know that he wanted to do it, or what happened?
No. Well, he really didn't. He actually, they had the memorial service on that Wednesday. And after the memorial service on that Wednesday, Joel called his mother and said, hey, Mom, I'm thinking about maybe I'll preach this Sunday if you don't have anyone else. I'd kind of like to do it. And his mom said, oh, great, Joel, that'd be fantastic, and hung up. Well, Joel thought that they wanted to talk about it. He's like, I don't, but his mom hung up, and he said, well, that's just my mom. She'll understand if I don't do it. So that during the memorial service, actually, Joel called before the memorial service to talk to his mom. During the service, Dodie, his mother, announced to the congregation that Joel would be preaching that Sunday. And so Joel's like, well, that's just Lakewood people. They'll understand if I don't do it. No big deal. So he said that night he and his wife are watching TV, watching the news coverage about his dad, and they had all these tributes and everything. And they finished the tribute, and they go back to the anchor sitting at the desk. And the anchor said, oh, and his son Joel will be preaching this Sunday. And so he thought at that point, I've got to do it, So he got up and did it. And, Dale, the church just continued to grow. And, some of it was because people were coming back out of respect for John, but they just never left. They just the church just kept growing and growing. And, we started a second Sunday morning service, and then we started a Saturday night service, and then we had to find a new building.
This was not in the Compact Center at that time, right?
No, this was in a very kind of industrial area of Northeast Houston. And that's where the church was founded, in a little feed store. And they just kept building buildings and growing. And, like I said, it was a 6,000 seat building, and there was, it was almost full on Sundays. and it just grew to the point where there were no roads. The roads were all 2-lane roads getting to and from the church, and the city had no plans to expand, and so we had to find a new spot. And through a series of events, the Compact Center became available.
And I remember, because I was down in Houston, and the train church had just burned, and you gave me a tour of that place.
Oh yeah,
remember that?
I do. Yeah.
And so it was just odd. It's just kind of like everything was in such upheaval, but that was really cool to see that. And I remember you indicating to me that Joel is exactly who he appears to be. He's not any different on screen or off. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, obviously it's, when you're in front of a bunch of people, he's very shy one-on-one, but, when he's on stage, he just kind of is a way of putting that aside. But, he's still the same guy on and off the stage, on and off screen, for sure.
Well, you've worked for him for the whole century so far.
I've been here 28 years, and it's been a great 28 years. It seems like it's not been that long because of the progress and the different things that have happened.
The miracle of God's timing. We learn about these things both from the message in Joel Osteen's story and also listening to 15 Minute Miracles and DaleWileyShow.com.